So in this video, I will be ranking every Quo studio album released in the 2000s. That's between 2000 and 2009. And at number 5, it's the Riffs album released in 2003, a year after the enormous success of Heavy Traffic. I believe they were supposed to release this at the same time, and then the success of Heavy Traffic kind of pushed it back a little bit. This is a covers album, and it is true that it's one of the better covers albums, but when compared to the other albums in this list, it's probably one of the weakest. There are versions on here of I Fought the Law, Born to be Wild, Taking Care of Business, Wild One, On the Road Again, Tobacco Road, and the first lead vocal on a Quo record by Rhino doing Jay Gellisband's, or Jay Gellisband's, however you pronounce it, Centerfold. It's kind of one of the very few firsts of a Quo album at this point. And then you have re-recordings of some of their tracks that they did earlier in their career, such as Caroline, Down the Dust Pipe, Whatever You Want, Rockin' All Over the World, and Junior's Wailing as well, which is, to my mind, one of the better versions recorded by Quo. It's amazing. It showcases Parfit's chugging rhythm guitar. That's one of the things I really like about it. And one day I was listening to this album and I was sort of nodding my head to Junior's Wailing from this recording. And these guys came over and he said, "What are you listening to?" And I gave him an earbud, and he listened for maybe a few seconds. It was during the instrumental break. Da 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 da. And he took the earbud out. He went over to his friends. They went, what was he listening to? And he went da 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 da. And it's like, that's Status Quo. And they went, rockin'. So at number 4, controversially, is the other covers album from the 2000s. I know that many people will put this at the bottom of any Quo pile, but for me there's a degree of nostalgia involved in this album, and for me the track listing is a bit better. It also feels like, unlike Riffs, where it feels like they're not quoing up these things, this, while the playing at times and the vibe of it can feel a little bit staid, a bit going through the motions, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, the way in which they do some of the tracks, like Roll Over Beethoven, When I'm Dead and Gone, even things like Sweet Home Chicago, Good Golly Miss Molly, like there is an energy there, and it's quoed up to a point. Things like Mony Mony, you know, I have heard versions of that song, and yes, it has certain elements of those other versions, but that scraping guitar sound was very influential for me in my own playing. I really liked that sound, and Old Time Rock and Roll could do with a bit more energy, but it's still a popular song in the Quo camp and was performed on Francis Rossi's solo tour as well back in the early 2010s. So, you know, it's obviously a song that he really liked performing. I really liked their interpretation of Rockin' Me and Once Bitten, Twice Shy, where they put that little mistake in at the beginning, which I feel has real personality. This is somewhat of a jukebox album. You could put this on, people will know it's Status Quo, they'll know all the songs regardless of if they're a fan or not, and each song, such as Old Time Rock and Roll into Way Down, it all rolls into each other and turns into a giant party. I know it won't be popular with everybody, but this is my number 4. At number 3, it's the 2005 40th anniversary album, The Party Ain't Over Yet. I wanted to place this higher. I really did, because for me there's a lot of nostalgia attached to this album. This was the time they were on Coronation Street, they were in the news, and it was it was one of those boom times to be a Quo fan. Just a few years later, they would perform at Glastonbury and start what I consider to be another boom time. This also coincides with the amazing documentary by John Keeling, also titled The Party Ain't Over Yet. Much like the previous album that I talked about, this is an album that sounds like Status Quo, in so much that there are boogie rhythms in here and there are sounds that you associate with the band. The Party Ain't Over Yet has got to be up there. The song, written by John David, has got to be up there with one of the it's one of the best singles that Quo ever released, and it was a top 20 hit, and it was played on Coronation Street, and it was, in the background. It was everywhere at one point. And even listening to it now, the way that Mike Paxman has blended everything together and the acoustic section in the middle, it's such a rip-roaring and, to me, sometimes emotional version. It really uplifts me, and I love the combination of that jig-like guitar and Rossi's vocals mixed with all of those backing vocals. To me, it's the perfect Quo single. Other fan favourites on here include Gotta Get Up and Go, All That Counts Is Love, and Bella Vista Man. It kind of tapers off a little bit towards the end with Kick Me When I'm Down, which is another John David composition. You Never Stop, Cupid Stupid. It's all sort of on the same level. Goodbye Baby sort of feels like it's trying to be Bye Bye Johnny, but it's still a very catchy song that was very popular on release, and I love that intro to that song. It starts the party, I think, is the phrase that I want to use here. But I do like the little deviations that they take, that there is some light and shade, such as Familiar Blues, which to me needed to be on a Quo stick. They needed to do an acoustic version of that song. The fact that they didn't, it's one of those songs where Rick Parfitt's autobiographicalness just kind of takes over. And you get the same on This Is Me, which now has some poignancy. It did then. It was just so... what is it with Rick Parfitt and really getting down and deep into emotion while still trying to rock? That is the magic, I think, of his songwriting and the way that he delivers things. So yeah, that is The Party Ain't Over Yet. That is my number 3. Number 2 is the 2007 album In Search of the Fourth Chord. Now, it's fair to say that if you're talking about artwork, this would be at the bottom of any Quo list. The artwork is awful. It's up there with the original album artwork for Under the Influence. It's a little bit uninspired. It's sort of like, yes, we're making a joke about the fact that there's that we've been playing free chords, or we've told people that we've been playing free chords, or people assume we've been playing free chords all these years. We found the fourth chord. Let's do Indiana Jones. Isn't that funny? Now, the artwork itself is really good, although I feel the Rick and Francis are just slightly off in terms of the artwork, but then it's the style, isn't it? Less said about the artwork, the better at this point. Maybe they could have done like a guitar, like Never Too Late or something like that with a chord on it, especially considering some of the stuff that they were saying on chat shows around the time. Rick Parfitt playing guitars and going, well, here's the fourth chord. I think I found it. That may have been a better option, but, this works too. We've got a nice shot of the band on the back, which is always nice to see, that it's not just these two guys. It is a combination of the 5 musicians. Beginning of the End, when it came out, was mind-blowing to me. I loved it. I thought it was such a topical record. What with the political references in there. Maybe, again, less said about Champion as the Wonder Horse as a line, but it kind of goes with the old-timey stuff they sometimes put into their lyrics. Just another word on the artwork. In Search of the Fourth Chord, there are some slight Indiana Jones sound references in this. Obviously, Pennsylvania Blues Tonight, which is where they say the fourth chord is, and Hold Me as well. Maybe even Saddling Up has kind of got that vibe going on as well. But for me, All Right, I Don't Want to Hurt You Anymore, classic Quo. Bad News is on here as well. Just that one song alone is enough to drive this up this list. It was the first original song with lead vocals by Rhino, and boy, does he knock it out of the park. He also submits Gravy Train to this, which has got that beautiful riff that keeps going, and there's a great version of it on the recent Rhino's Revenge Charge album as well, with Rhino on vocals. But Rick kills it on that song in a good way. He really powers that through, and it was often a joke when I was at college that people heard Gravy Train and almost assumed it was like Quo trying to be really heavy in some way. But the thing is, it is heavy in Quo's way, and it really works. Much like some of the previous albums we've talked about, there is live... Much like the previous albums we've talked about, there is light and shade. We've got things like Electric Arena and My Little Heartbreaker, which is sort of this country honky-tonk type thing going on. I love the groove of that and the way the guitar comes in at the end. And the album, certainly the main album before we get into the bonus track, it finishes with Tongue Tied, which is one of the most beautiful songs that Rossi has ever performed. The frailty in his vocals is just exquisite. Absolutely wonderful. Now, there were two bonus tracks on this album, one of them being I Ain't Wasting My Time on the UK release, and I think in Europe they had One by One, which was a re-recording of a track from 1978 that they demoed at that time. I Ain't Wasting My Time is typical Quo by numbers type thing, but I know a lot of people really liked it. It's always nice to hear a harmonica in Quo's music, and I think the last instance of it might have been in Velvet Train on the Party Ain't Over Yet album. But yeah, In Search of the Fourth Chord is my number 2. You don't need to ask what number 1 is. It's Heavy Traffic, isn't it? This album came out in 2002. It's 20 years old now. It was a revolution, the first album to feature Matt Letley on drums. They had this renewed energy. They released Jam Side Down, which was a top 20 hit. They appeared on Top of the Pops, which again, for somebody of my age of like 12, seeing them on Top of the Pops alongside like all the pop acts of the day was like, wow, these guys have been around for decades, and yet they're still able to compete with the rest of them, you know? It's just, it's such a consistent album, starting off with blues and rhythm, that rhythm being the key thing. Like I said, a lot of references to things in their songwriting, which I know some might say is lazy. To me, it just shows what they were doing at this moment. So let's talk about the artwork. This artwork needs to be on vinyl, doesn't it? Because they put so much effort into that. They're running away from a herd of elephants. This is heavy traffic, quite literally. And it always amused me that Andy Bowen was the closest to the elephants. He was lagging behind. So the track listing on this album, we've got Blues and Rhythm, All Stand Up, Never Say Never, which was a single and deserved to do better. Somebody needs to remix that. It sounded great live with their use of technology. The Oriental, which again has been in the set forever. Creeping Up on You, which was a mainstay in the set for a long time and one of Rick Parfitt's best vocal performances. And who can forget that lead guitar line as well? Do, 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 do. Like, just so catchy. Then we've got Heavy Traffic, which it's funny how recently with songs like Running Out of Time and older songs like Never Too Late, somewhere in between, people have gone, oh, you never do anything topical or about the environment. That's new, isn't it? Whenever they write a song about the environment. Well, to me, that's what Heavy Traffic is. Every time we see the red light turning, there ain't nothing anyone can do. Then we've got Solid Gold, Solid Groove, Green, Jam Side Down, obviously, as I said before, Digging Bert, Bacharach, Do It Again, Another Day, I Don't Remember Anymore, Money Don't Matter, which is a bonus track on the UK edition, and then Rhythm of Life. Some may say that this album kind of, again, dips a little bit in quality the later that we get, maybe after Jam Side Down. Some say after Solid Gold. It kind of goes down into a different realm. It's sort of not quite as, it's a bit more Quo by numbers, I guess, is what you could say. But they are memorable songs. I've lost count of the amount of times I just burst into Money Don't Matter or I Don't Remember Anymore, which again was referenced by Rossi on his solo DVD and Blu-ray that's out there. Do It Again. I mean, if you ever found anything better than Working, just do it again, like Flying a Plane or Nude Body Surfing. I mean, is there ever a better Quo line? You tell me. So that is my number one, Heavy Traffic. This is an amazing album. Perhaps the production could do with a little bit of freshening up after all this time. I know some have said that. I personally feel that a lot of these things you should leave alone unless there really was an issue to begin with, like with the Rockin' All Over the World album. But yeah, this is my number one, Status Quo, Heavy Traffic. Is this your number one of the 2000s in terms of studio albums? Let me know in the comments below.